My name is Reem. I am 17 years old, and tomorrow morning at exactly 10 a.m., I will be handed over to a man who is 89 years old, a man older than my own grandfather, a man whose first wife died before I was even born. They call it a wedding. I call it a burial, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this nightmare really began, so you can understand how a Saudi princess, someone who supposedly had everything, ended up with absolutely nothing, and how the God I was never supposed to know became the only one who could save me. I grew up in Riyadh, in a palace with 147 rooms. Yes, I counted them as a child, running through marble hallways imported from Italy, my bare feet cold against floors that cost more than most people earn in a lifetime. Golden fountains in every courtyard, chandeliers from France hanging in rooms we never even used. Servants who knew my schedule better than I did. My family name carries weight in Saudi Arabia. Real weight. The kind that opens doors and closes mouths. We're Al Saud, royalty not just by title, but by blood that traces back centuries. My father, Prince Abdullah, controls oil contracts worth billions. My mother's jewelry collection could fund a small country. I had everything a girl could want, they told me. Private tutors from Switzerland. Dresses from Paris that I wore once and never again. A bedroom larger than most people's homes, with a balcony overlooking gardens that required 20 gardeners to maintain. But here's what they don't tell you about golden cages. They're still cages. I couldn't leave the palace grounds without 3 male relatives and written permission. I couldn't choose my own clothes without my mother's approval. Modesty. Always modesty, covering not just my body but my very existence. I couldn't laugh too loudly. Couldn't ask too many questions. Couldn't dream beyond the narrow path already laid out for me. Have you ever owned everything and controlled nothing? Have you ever felt like the most expensive object in a room full of treasures? That's what it means to be a Saudi princess. You're not a person. You're an asset, a political tool, a bargaining chip in games played by men in air-conditioned rooms while they sip Arabic coffee and decide your entire future. I was 15 years old when my father told me about the arrangement. I remember that day with the kind of clarity that comes from trauma. I was sitting in the women's majlis, the separate living area where females gather, always separate, always apart from the real decisions. My mother was teaching me proper posture for formal dinners. Back straight, eyes down, smile soft, be decorative but invisible. My father entered, which was unusual. Men don't usually come to the women's spaces unannounced. He looked at me with something I couldn't quite read. Pride. Satisfaction. Certainly not concern. Reem, he said, using my full name, not the affectionate nicknames from my childhood. You should be honored. Prince Faisal Al Rashid has requested your hand in marriage. The contracts will be signed when you turn 18. Prince Faisal Al Rashid. Even his name sounded ancient. I later learned he was 87 at the time. 87. He had children older than my father, grandchildren older than me. He buried 3 wives already, and now he wanted a 4th, young, royal blood to strengthen political alliances between 2 powerful families. My mother smiled. This is a great honor, Reem. You'll want for nothing. Nothing except choice. Nothing except freedom. Nothing except the fundamental human dignity of deciding who touches your body. But I was 15. I didn't have the words yet. I just nodded, felt something die inside my chest, and excused myself to my room where I stared at that ornate ceiling, hand-painted by artists from Morocco, gold leaf patterns that probably cost a fortune, and felt my soul scream in silence. 2 years. I had 2 years before they would hand me over like property with a price tag. Do you know what it's like to watch a countdown to your own death? Because that's what it felt like. Every birthday bringing me closer. Every month a tick of a clock I couldn't stop. I threw myself into religious devotion, thinking maybe that would save me. I performed wudu 5 times a day, the ritual washing of hands, face, and feet that Muslims must complete before each of the 5 daily prayers. I memorized more Quran verses. I prayed on my knees until they ached, forehead pressed to the prayer mat, begging Allah to change my father's mind. The water ran cold over my skin during ablution, but I felt nothing inside, just emptiness echoing back. My prayers hit the ceiling and fell back down like dead birds. I was 17, 3 months away from my 18th birthday, when everything changed. It started with a book. We had a Filipino housemaid named Maria. She'd worked in our palace for 6 years, always quiet, always efficient. She cleaned my room every Tuesday and Thursday, and we developed something like friendship in the way you can when one person holds all the power and the other holds none. One Thursday, Maria didn't show up for work. I later learned she'd been fired immediately. No warning, no explanation. Just gone, like she'd never existed. But in her hurry to leave, she'd left something behind. I found it tucked behind a loose marble tile in my bathroom, wrapped in a plastic bag. A book. Small, leather-bound, worn at the edges. English text on the cover. Holy Bible. My hands shook as I held it. This was contraband. Illegal. Christians aren't allowed to proselytize in Saudi Arabia. Possessing a Bible isn't technically illegal for foreigners, but for a Saudi citizen, especially royalty, to be caught with one? Prison. Public shaming. Possible execution for apostasy if they suspected conversion. I should have burned it immediately. Instead, I hid it under my mattress. That night, after midnight, after my family was asleep, I pulled it out with trembling fingers. The palace was silent except for the hum of air conditioning and distant footsteps of security guards. I turned on my bedside lamp, dimmed to the lowest setting, and opened to a random page, Matthew chapter 5. The Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. I read those words 3 times, tears streaming down my face, because for the first time in my 17 years, someone was speaking directly to my pain. Not dismissing it, not telling me to be grateful for my blessings, not demanding I smile through my suffering. Blessed are those who mourn. Someone saw that I was mourning. Someone acknowledged that pain is real, even in a palace. I couldn't stop reading. Night after night, I devoured those pages like a starving person finding food. I read about Jesus healing the sick, touching lepers that society had cast out, speaking to women with dignity and respect. Women with names. Women with voices. That I read about the woman at the well, a Samaritan woman with a complicated past, and Jesus didn't condemn her. He offered her living water. He saw her. Really saw her. I read about Mary Magdalene, a woman Jesus defended, a woman who became the first witness to his resurrection. Not a man, not a priest, a woman whose testimony mattered. Could you imagine the difference? In my world, a woman's testimony in Islamic court is worth half of a man's. 2 women equal 1 man in legal matters. But Jesus chose a woman to carry the most important news in human history. The contrast was devastating. My future husband, the man I was being forced to marry, had publicly stated that women were like precious jewels that must be locked away. That our value was in our virginity and our ability to produce sons. That we needed male guardianship because we were intellectually and emotionally inferior. But Jesus called women daughter. Jesus stopped his ministry to listen to a bleeding woman who touched his robe. Jesus let women sit at his feet and learn, breaking every cultural rule. I was 3 weeks into secret nightly readings when the question became impossible to ignore. What if Jesus is real? What if he's not just a prophet like Islam teaches, but actually who he claimed to be, God in flesh, the only way to the Father? The implications terrified me. If Jesus was telling the truth, then everything I'd been taught was wrong. If Jesus was the way, then the 5 daily prayers I'd performed for years were aimed at the wrong destination. If Jesus was the door, then I'd been knocking on walls. But if Jesus was real, then maybe, just maybe, I wasn't actually property. Maybe I had inherent worth beyond my bloodline and my virginity. Maybe I was seen by someone who could actually do something about my situation. 2 months before my 18th birthday. 8 weeks before the wedding. 56 days before I would be handed over to a man who could be my great-grandfather. I made the most dangerous decision of my life. It was 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. I remember because I'd watched the clock on my phone tick past midnight, then 1, then 2, unable to sleep. The weight of my future pressed down like a physical thing, crushing my chest. I got out of bed, knelt on the prayer mat that faced Mecca, the same mat I'd prayed on for years, and I turned my body the opposite direction. Symbolic, defiant, terrified, and I whispered the prayer that would either save me or destroy me. Jesus, if you are real, if you can hear me, if you actually see me as more than property, please don't let me disappear. Don't let me become just another silent wife in a house full of ghosts. If you're really God, if you really love me like the book says, I need you to prove it, because I can't do this alone anymore. What happened next? I cannot explain with logic or reason. A warmth started in my chest, physical, tangible, like someone had placed a heated stone against my heart. It spread through my body, not burning but comforting, like being wrapped in invisible arms. The emptiness I'd carried for years, that hollow ache that no amount of wealth or prayer could fill, suddenly felt full. And I knew, not thought, not hoped, knew, with the same certainty you know your own name. Someone was there. Someone heard. Someone cared. I wept into my prayer mat for an hour, but these weren't tears of despair anymore. They were tears of relief, of recognition, of coming home to a place I'd never been. I was no longer Muslim. I was Christian, and in Saudi Arabia, that meant I was as good as dead. The next 6 weeks were the strangest of my life. Outwardly, nothing changed. I still wore my abaya and hijab, still attended family dinners, still smiled politely when relatives asked if I was excited about the wedding. But inside, I was transformed. I prayed constantly, not the ritualized prayers of Islam with specific words and positions, but conversations. Real, honest, sometimes angry conversations with Jesus. I read the Bible hidden inside textbooks, inside fashion magazines, anywhere I could disguise it. I memorized whole chapters, terrified they'd find the physical book and take it away. John 14, Psalm 23, Romans 8. For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation, will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord. I clung to those words like a drowning person clings to driftwood, but the guilt was crushing. I love my family. My mother, despite her complicity in this arranged marriage, had raised me. My father, for all his authoritarian control, believed he was protecting me. My younger sisters looked up to me. How could I continue participating in their prayers when I no longer believed? How could I bow toward Mecca when my heart was bowing somewhere else entirely? The internal conflict was torture. During family prayer times, I would mouth the Arabic words while praying in my heart to Jesus. During Quran recitation, I would remember Bible verses. I was living a double life, and the weight of a secret felt like it would crush me. But I couldn't tell them. To confess would mean death. Not metaphorical death, actual, physical execution. Apostasy, leaving Islam, is punishable by death in Saudi Arabia. For a member of the royal family to convert to Christianity, unthinkable, unforgivable. So I stayed silent and prayed that somehow, some way, Jesus would make a way out. Have you ever kept a secret so dangerous that just thinking about it too loudly felt like it might kill you? 5 weeks before the wedding, my mother threw an elaborate henna party, a pre-wedding celebration where women gather and the bride's hands and feet are decorated with intricate henna designs. Aunts, cousins, family friends, all there to celebrate my good fortune. I sat on a cushioned throne while an artist painted my hands with patterns that would stain my skin for weeks. Everyone oohed and awed. Someone played traditional music. Servants brought trays of dates and Arabic sweets and steaming tea. And all I could think was, these hands will belong to him in 5 weeks. This body they're celebrating will be his property. I am being gift-wrapped for consumption. I excused myself to the bathroom and vomited. My cousin Layla found me there, wiping my mouth, trying to compose myself. Layla was 16, my closest friend growing up. We'd shared secrets, stayed up whispering about dreams and fears, played at each other's hair. Reem, are you okay? She closed the bathroom door behind her, concern in her eyes. I should have lied. Should have blamed food poisoning or nerves. Should have protected the secret, but I was so tired, so desperately tired of lying. Layla, do you ever feel like your life isn't your own? Like you're just playing a role someone else wrote? She looked uncomfortable. It's normal to be nervous before a wedding. But this is a huge honor, Reem. Prince Faisal is very powerful. You'll be well cared for. He's 89 years old. Age brings wisdom. He could die in a year and leave me a teenage widow. Then you be a wealthy widow from a good family. You be taken care of. Taken care of. Like a pet. Like property. Never like a person with wants and dreams, and the right to choose her own path. The words burst out before I could stop them. What if there's a different way? What if we don't have to accept what they tell us? What if we could choose our own lives? Layla's face changed. Hardened. That's dangerous talk, Reem. You sound like those feminists, those Western women who've lost their way. We have Islam. We have structure. We have protection. What you're talking about is chaos. I should have stopped. Should have backpedaled. But something reckless had taken hold. What if Islam isn't the only way? What if there's a God who actually values women as equals? The silence was deafening. Layla stared at me like I'd grown a second head. What are you saying? And that's when I made the mistake that would cost me everything. I've been reading other things, other perspectives, and I found something that makes more sense than anything I've ever been taught. What things? My heart was pounding. A Bible. Layla's face went white, then red, then white again. You have a Bible? Reem, you can't. Do you understand what you're saying? I'm saying I've found truth. Real truth. Not the kind that makes women property, but the kind that sets people free. Have you? Her voice dropped to a horrified whisper. Have you converted? Have you become Christian? I could have denied it. Could have laughed it off as curiosity, academic interest, nothing serious. Could have saved myself. Instead, I looked my cousin in the eyes and said, yes. The look on her face, I'll never forget it. Horror, disgust, fear, and underneath it all, something like pity. She backed toward the door. Reem, I have to tell them. You understand that, right? I have to tell your father. This is apostasy. This is. Layla, please. I grabbed her arm. Please don't. They'll kill me. You know they will. Tears were streaming down her face now. I don't have a choice. This is family honor. This is about Islam itself. I can't keep the secret, Reem. I love you, but I can't. She pulled away from my grip and ran out of the bathroom. I stood there, frozen, knowing my life as I'd known it was over. 6 hours. That's how long it took for my world to completely collapse. I returned to the henna party, trying to act normal, but my hands were shaking so badly the henna artist had to stop. I made excuses. Tired, overwhelmed, needed to rest. No one questioned it. Bride nerves, they assumed. I went to my room and tried to pray. Tried to find that peace I'd felt when I first called on Jesus. But all I felt was terror, raw and primal. Would they actually kill me? My own family? My own father? In Saudi Arabia, honor killings aren't just accepted in some families, they're expected. A daughter who brings shame? Better to end her life than let her stain the family name. And apostasy wasn't just shame. It was the ultimate betrayal. At 11:30 p.m., my bedroom door burst open. My father stormed in, flanked by 2 of his personal guards. His face was a color I'd never seen before, deep red, veins bulging in his neck. My mother followed, her makeup smeared from crying. Everyone out! My father commanded. The servants scattered. The door slammed shut. He crossed the room in 3 strides and backhanded me across the face, so hard I crashed into my vanity. Perfume bottles shattered. My lips split open. Blood filled my mouth. Where is it? He roared. Where is the book? I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. My ear was ringing from the impact. He grabbed me by my hair and yanked me upright. The Bible. Where? Is it? Under the mattress. I choked out. One of the guards flipped my bed. Found it. Held it up like evidence in a trial. My father's voice went deadly quiet, which was somehow more terrifying than the shouting. How long? 2 months. Have you converted? Have you accepted Jesus as... He couldn't even finish the sentence. Couldn't say the words. This was it. The moment of truth. I could lie. Could say I was just curious, just reading for academic purposes. Could probably save my life with the right words. But Jesus had seen me when no one else did. Jesus had filled the emptiness. Jesus had valued me when my own culture said I was worth half a man. How could I deny him now? I looked my father in the eyes, tasted blood in my mouth, and said clearly, yes, I believe Jesus is Lord. I believe he died for my sins and rose again. I believe he's the only way to God. My mother collapsed, wailing. My father looked at me like I was already a corpse. You are no longer my daughter, he said. You have brought shame on our house, on our name, on our bloodline. You are dead to us. He turned to the guards. Lock her in the lower chambers. No one speaks to her. No one sees her. And contact Sheikh Rahman. We'll need a religious court convened immediately. They dragged me out of my room, my beautiful prison cell room. Downstairs I'd never been allowed to descend, into parts of the palace I didn't know existed. A door unlocked. A room with concrete walls, a single bare bulb, a metal cot. They threw me inside. The door slammed. The lock clicked. And I was alone in the dark, with nothing but my faith and my terror. The next 7 days were the longest of my life. No one came except to push a tray of food under the door once a day. Rice and water. Nothing else. The room was cold at night, sweltering during the day. No windows. No sense of time except the meals. I prayed constantly, sometimes in words, sometimes just in groans. Sometimes I sang hymns I'd learned from reading the Gospels, making up melodies because I'd never actually heard Christian worship music. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound, that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. My voice echoed off concrete walls, and I wondered if Jesus could hear it, wondered if he was there at all, or if I'd traded one empty religion for another. But even in the darkness, even in the fear, that warmth in my chest remained. That knowing, that presence. I wasn't alone. Even when I felt alone, I wasn't out on the 7th day they came for me. I was blindfolded, hands zip-tied behind my back, and shoved into a vehicle. We drove for what felt like an hour. When they finally removed the blindfold, I was in a room I didn't recognize. Austere. Traditional Islamic decor. 3 elderly men in white thobes and red checkered gutras sat behind a long table. This was the religious court, a secret Sharia tribunal that handled cases too sensitive for public proceedings. My father stood to the side, arms crossed, face like stone. He wouldn't look at me. The center judge, Sheikh Rahman, a man I'd seen at family gatherings, always stern, always judging, cleared his throat. Reem bint Abdullah al-Saud, you stand accused of ridda, apostasy from Islam. This is the gravest sin, a crime against Allah, against the Prophet, peace be upon him, and against the Ummah. Do you understand the charges? I nodded. Speak. I understand. You were raised Muslim. Yes. You performed the prayers, fasted during Ramadan, recited the Shahada, the declaration of faith in Allah and His Prophet. Yes, all of it. And now you reject this. You reject the truth of Islam. Here it was. The moment. I could recant. Could say I was confused, misled, sorry. Could perform the Shahada again. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger, and be welcomed back into the fold. All I had to do was deny Jesus. I thought about Peter, denying Jesus 3 times before the rooster crowed. I thought about the disciples who ran when Jesus was arrested. I thought about every person who'd ever been afraid. And then I thought about Jesus on the cross, refusing to come down even though he could have. Choosing death. Choosing me. Could you deny Jesus to save your life? Could you look these men in the face and say the words that would set you free, knowing they were lies? I took a deep breath. I cannot deny the truth. Jesus Christ is the Son of God. He died for my sins and rose from the dead. He is the only way to the Father. I cannot and will not recant. My father made a sound like he'd been punched. Sheikh Rahman's face hardened. Then you leave us no choice. According to the Quran, Surah 4, verse 89, if they turn back to unbelief, seize them and kill them wherever you find them. According to Hadith, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, whoever changes his religion, kill him. He looked at the other 2 judges. They nodded. Reem bint Abdullah al-Saud, you are hereby sentenced to death by beheading for the crime of apostasy. Due to your family status, this sentence will be carried out privately. You will be given 3 days to reconsider. If you recant, the sentence will be commuted. If not, the execution will proceed. 3 days, 72 hours to choose between life and truth. They returned me to the cell. This time, the concrete walls felt even colder. The single bulb seemed dimmer. I had no Bible, No possessions. Nothing except the clothes I'd been wearing for a week. And I had a choice to make. The first day was the hardest. Every instinct screamed at me to survive. To say the words. To perform the Shahadah. To go back to being a good Muslim girl who would marry the old prince and live in comfortable misery until death. At least I'd be alive, the voice whispered. At least you'd see your mother again. At least you'd get to grow old. But I'd be living a lie. I'd be denying the only one who'd ever truly seen me. I'd be choosing the cage again, after tasting freedom. I paced the cell, arguing with myself, crying, praying, doubting. Jesus, I whispered into the darkness, if you're real, I need you to show up. Because I'm about to die for believing in you, and I need to know it's not for nothing. I need to know you're actually there. Silence. Just cold concrete and a bare bulb in my own ragged breathing. The second day, strange peace began to settle over me. Not the absence of fear. The fear was still there, sharp and present. But underneath it, something solid, something unshakable. I thought about the martyrs I'd read about in the Bible. Stephen stoned to death, seeing heaven open and Jesus standing at God's right hand. James, killed by Herod's sword. Peter, crucified upside down. Paul, beheaded in Rome. They'd all chosen death over denial. They'd all considered Jesus worth dying for. Was this Jewish carpenter from 2,000 years ago worth my life? I thought about what he'd done for me. Seen me when I was invisible. Valued me when I was property. Filled me when I was empty. Given me hope when I had none. Yeah, he was worth it. By the third day, I'd made my decision. If tomorrow they came to execute me, I would go to my death as a Christian. I would not recant. I would not deny. I would rather die as Reem who belonged to Jesus than live as Reem who belonged to everyone else. I spent that last day worshiping, singing every hymn I could remember or invent, reciting every Bible verse I'd memorized, praying for my family that somehow, someday they'd understand, praying for the man I would never marry, praying for my country that one day people would be free to choose their own faith. And as the sun set on my final day, not that I could see the sun from the windowless cell, but I could feel it somehow, I lay down on the metal cot and actually felt peace. Jesus, I prayed, tomorrow I'll either see you face to face, or you'll do a miracle. Either way, I trust you. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for valuing me. Thank you for setting me free, even if that freedom cost me everything. I closed my eyes and, impossibly, fell asleep. I woke to light, not the dim bulb that had been my only illumination for 10 days. Not morning sun creeping through windows. Light. Pure, white, brilliant light that filled the cell like it was emanating from the walls themselves. I sat up, heart pounding, eyes trying to adjust. The light was so bright I should have been blinded, but somehow I could see perfectly. And in the light, I heard a voice. Deep, masculine, loving in a way that made my chest ache. A voice that felt like coming home. Reem. Daughter. Not property. Stand up. I scrambled to my feet, trembling. Jesus. I see you, beloved. I've always seen you. And today you're leaving this place. But how? The door is locked. There are guards. This is impossible. I made the impossible possible when I walked out of a tomb. Do you trust me? Did I? After everything, after all the fear and doubt and darkness, did I actually trust him? Yes, I whispered. Yes, I trust you. Then walk. The door to my cell, solid metal, locked with 3 electronic bolts that required key codes, clicked open. Just clicked, like someone had pressed a button. I stood there, frozen, staring at the slightly ajar door. Walk, daughter. I pushed the door. It swung open silently. The corridor outside was dim, lit only by emergency lighting. And lining the hallway, slumped in chairs, leaning against walls, sprawled on the floor, were 7 guards. All asleep. Not just asleep. Supernaturally, deeply asleep. I could see their chests rising and falling, could hear their breathing. But they weren't responding to anything. I checked the pulse of the nearest one. Strong and steady. He was alive, just sleeping. I tiptoed past them, expecting any second for someone to wake up, to grab me, to sound an alarm. But no one moved. It was like walking through a painting of sleeping people. Another door at the end of the corridor. This one required a hand scanner and a 6-digit code that I didn't have. I pressed my hand to the scanner anyway, because the voice had told me to walk. Beep. Click. The door unlocked. I pushed through and I was outside. The night air hit my face like a baptism. Stars overhead, actual stars, not painted ceilings. I was in some kind of compound, walls surrounding me, but the main gate was standing open. I ran. Barefoot, wearing the same clothes I'd been in for 10 days, smelling of sweat and fear and concrete. I ran through that gate like my life depended on it. Because it did. I ran into the desert darkness, expecting any second to hear shouts, sirens, gunshots. But behind me, only silence. In front of me, only darkness and sand and the impossible fact that I was free. And then, from absolutely nowhere, wind began to blow. Not a gentle breeze. Wind. Violent, sudden, roaring wind that whipped sand into the air so thick I couldn't see 3 feet in front of me. A sandstorm, appearing in seconds from a sky that had been perfectly clear. That I should have been terrified. Should have stopped, tried to find shelter. But somehow I knew, deep in my bones, in that same place where the warmth lived, that the storm was for me. Protecting me. Hiding me. I kept running, and the storm moved with me, concealing me in a wall of sand that I ran for what felt like hours. My feet bled. My lungs burned. My legs screamed for rest. But I didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Because behind me was death, and ahead was, I didn't know what. But it had to be better. As dawn began to break, the storm suddenly ceased. The sand settled, and I found myself standing at a checkpoint, the border between Saudi Arabia and Jordan. In the chaos of the unexpected sandstorm, border security was scrambled, trying to deal with equipment damaged by sand, trying to find workers who'd been caught outside. In the confusion, I slipped through. A teenage girl in filthy clothes, looking like a refugee. Because that's what I was. A refugee from my own family, my own country, my own former life. On the Jordanian side, I collapsed. Couldn't take another step. Couldn't do anything except lie in the sand and sob. Relief and terror and exhaustion all mixed together. A woman found me. Middle-aged, kind eyes, clothes that marked her as Christian. She knelt beside me, offered water, asked in broken Arabic if I needed help. Jesus, I whispered. Jesus, save me. Her eyes widened. She made a phone call. Within an hour, I was in a safe house run by an underground network that helps Christians fleeing persecution in the Middle East. They gave me food, clean clothes, a real bed, medical attention for my cut feet and split lip, and time to process, time to grieve, time to understand that my old life was truly over. I later learned that my family reported me dead. Officially dead. They couldn't admit that I'd escaped, couldn't admit that they'd failed to execute me. So they told everyone I died of sudden illness. Brief mourning period. Closed casket. No funeral. I'm officially dead in Saudi Arabia. My sisters think I'm buried somewhere. My mother will never hold me again. My father's name is intact, but his daughter is gone. And that teenager who was supposed to be handed over to an 89-year-old man? She got married all right, to Jesus Christ. The only husband who will never see me as property, never devalue me, never treat me as less than fully human. That was 7 years ago. Today, I live under a different name in a country I can't specify for safety reasons. I work with the same network that saved me, helping other women escape forced marriages, honor killings, and religious persecution. We've helped 43 women find freedom, physical and spiritual. I run an online ministry using technology that didn't exist when my grandmother was young. Ironic, isn't it? A former Saudi princess using YouTube and social media to tell Muslim women that Jesus sees them, values them, and offers them a different way. I can never go home, can never see my mother or my sisters, can never attend a family gathering or walk through those marble halls. There are people who would kill me if they knew where I was. But I'm free. Free in ways I never could have imagined in that palace. Free to think my own thoughts, speak my own words, make my own choices. Free to worship Jesus openly. Free to tell my story so that maybe, just maybe, someone else trapped in a golden cage will know there's a key. The key is a person. His name is Jesus. And he doesn't break down doors. He opens them from the inside, starting with your heart. I lost everything. Palace. Family. country, name, future, everything I was supposed to be, and I gained everything that actually matters. Identity, purpose, freedom, love, life. Was it worth it? Would I do it again, knowing what it would cost? Every single time. Because Jesus didn't promise me a palace. He promised me presence. He didn't offer me wealth. He offered me worth. He didn't give me safety. He gave me salvation. And on that final day, when I stand before Him face to face, I won't regret choosing Him over comfort. I'll only regret that I didn't find Him sooner. If you're watching this from your own cage, whether it's made of gold or iron, religion or addiction, culture or fear, I want you to know something. Jesus sees you. Right now, in this moment, He sees you. He knows your name. He knows your pain. He knows the impossible situation you think you're trapped in. And He's the God of impossible situations. The same God who parted the Red Sea can part the walls of your prison. The same God who walked out of a tomb can walk you out of whatever death you're living in. The same God who opened my cell door can open yours. But you have to be willing to walk through it, even if it costs you everything. Even if everyone you love turns against you. Even if you lose your reputation, your comfort, your old identity. Because what Jesus offers in return isn't just eternity in heaven someday. It's freedom today. Real freedom. The kind that lives in your chest even when you're in chains. The kind that lets you sleep in peace even when you're facing death. I was a Saudi princess forced into marriage with a man older than my grandfather. That was supposed to be my story. But then Jesus appeared, and He gave me a different story. A better story. A true story. What's your story? And are you ready to let Him rewrite it? The question isn't whether God can use your life for His glory. He can. He already has plans for you that you can't even imagine. The question is, are you willing to surrender everything to follow Him? Are you willing to walk away from the cage, even if it's comfortable? Are you willing to trust the voice that says, walk, even when you can't see the path? I did. And I'm here to tell you it's worth it. Every loss, every tear, every moment of fear. Worth it. Because I'm finally free. And you can be too. His name is Jesus. And He's waiting for you to call His name, just like I did at 2:47 a.m. in a palace that became a prison. Call His name. He'll answer. He always does. And when He opens your door, walk. Don't look back. Don't count the cost. Just walk into the freedom He's offering. Because on the other side of that door is life. Real life. The life you were always meant to live. The life where you're not property. You're a daughter. Beloved. Seen. Known. Free.